how would you, let me throw this out. I can run around, introduce everybody quickly, or I can ask you all to introduce yourselves. Which would you prefer?
Quick.
All right, quick, great. Because I also wanted to call the roll, too, so you all know who's on it. And then I'll explain and lead to the town manager, superintendent, and actually Chairman Cavey to say a couple words, given that this is a pretty important meeting. We put a lot of effort to get to this point. To our project team, if you could just bear with us for about 5 extra minutes, I'll run through this as quickly as we can. So when I say your name, if you could wave, smile, or however you'd like to, in the order of my approved list. So Fran Brutinetti.
Yes.
So Fran is the procurement officer for the town. She served on the committee for the last 2 years as a proxy for the town manager. Now she's seated as a full committee member. Stephen Cavey, the chair of the select board. He's been on the committee, I think, from the beginning. Yes, from the beginning. Tom Coulter, town manager, you all must know. Also been on the committee from the beginning. Actually, came on after Mark Tisdale, who is also a committee member and is not here yet. After he stepped down as interim town manager. Jillian DeStefano, a newly elected school committee member. Jillian, I don't know much about you other than what I read in all your campaign stuff, so if you'd like to say anything, feel free, but you're the school committee delegate to the building committee.
Yeah, representative, yes.
Great. Dr. Bayeda, of course, is superintendent of schools. Dennis Rigo, I don't see here.
He's at the CPC meeting right now, but he'll be joining
Great.
us.
So Dennis Rigo is the I don't know his official position, maintenance. Director of Facilities for the school. Took over for Joyce Husseini when she retired. Mark Tisdale is town engineer, and assistant town manager. I don't see Mark here yet. Jake Doors, of course, the principal of the South School. Jake, I know I saw you
Yeah,
here.
here.
Katie Monahan, principal of the Wilkins School. Both have been on the committee from the beginning, and it's been a pleasure working with both of them, frankly, because I don't know anything about the elementary schools other than what I've learned over the last 3 years. Lynn Jordan, former teacher, former principal of the Gibbons School, also served on the library building committee. Anne Marie Raymond. I don't know if I saw Anne Marie here.
She won't be here, she's got a finance lead.
She's the assistant finance director for the town, I think is her official position. Craig Horsfall is the assistant town engineer. I don't see him, but he must be with them also. Thomas Recupero, I am the chair of the school building committee. Diane Dolan was our finance committee delegate, has been on the committee from the beginning. Sandra Gropey was on the building committee at the beginning, off for a short spell, back on the building committee, former school committee person, and worked like a dog in the final weeks of the school campaign. Leo Fay has been on several committees. Leo Fay joined the committee probably a year ago now, if I remember right. Also, if you ever remember the House of Brews downtown, Leo used to operate that establishment.
Bring it back, bring it back.
Leo's worked in the construction business for ever. Melissa Lynch has been on the committee from the beginning. Melissa Lynch was, I think, at first a community delegate, but you were also a finance committee member, or you were a standing committee member of one of the town meetings.
There was an IGR previously, yes.
Right. Been on the committee from the beginning. Pleasure to see her here. Joe Buckley. Joe worked at the MSBA, actually, for 20-something years. 15 years. Shoot. Registered mechanical engineer and an old, one of the founding families of Stoughton. Pat Yanikoski. Pat is a former school committee member, has been on the committee, came on with Leo about a year ago, and has been on any number of committees and town meeting over the years.
Independent working group, blah, blah.
And the independent working group, that's right. Joel Wolk. Joel I could go on with for a while. Joel was on the high school building committee. He was still on the Finance Committee, if I remember right,
That's correct. Also on the library building committee.
on the library and on the Public Safety Building Committee.
Well, the former one.
Worked,
And, I'm glad to see that Julie's here because I needed to confirm that on the high school building committee, the superintendent brought food. You remember, Julie?
Yes, fondly.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Joel also worked for years as the owner's project manager on school projects for Gilbane Construction.
Correct.
And I think everything I learned by mistake on the high school building committee, I probably learned from Joel.
Will, fine to finally meet you.
And finally, Julie Miller, who is now the principal of the high school and is the incoming superintendent of schools for Stoughton. And she will be, over the next year, she will be, I think, taking on more of a role on this. So, oh, and I can't not introduce the team. So at the far end of the table in the blue sweater is Carl Franceschi of DRA, Drummy Rosanna Anderson. Next to him should be Courtney Southwick, also with DRA. Brian Kelly is with Vertex. I don't think anybody on the committee has met Brian yet. Brian has worked with Tim for about 15 or 20 years,
30 years now, right?
30 years,
Off and on, yeah.
and will be taking on sort of a role, as Tim described it to me, if you remember Dom Taberry, who worked in the high school.
Tom is busy home raising his grandchildren.
Yeah. Of course, Eric Rubin. Eric, you'll get emails from Eric over the next couple years constantly, and I actually rely on that myself because there's a lot that I forget to email out. Thank you, Eric. And of course, Tim Bonfatti of Vertex, that was formerly Compass Project Management, Tim's company, bought out by Vertex and now took over and was selected. When Vertex was selected, Tim came aboard, and I think that was great because it allowed people who have worked on this high school project in this town to come aboard and take care of this project also. And if you have the agenda, we don't have this listed, but if there's no objection, I'd like to take Chairman's prerogative here just for a couple minutes. If I can ask a couple people to say something, because this was a hard slog to get to this point where we'd even have this meeting. And a month ago, I was dreading the meeting that we would have had to have if the vote failed. So I'm thankful that we're here and thankful that we have so many interested in participating. But if I could ask, actually, why don't I start with Steve Cavey, because the select board is actually the technical eligible applicant under this. So if you could say a couple words on, well, let me back up, because I don't want to lead you in cold. One of the discussions I had, brief discussion, because it was really something that he was doing before I ever stepped in his office, but Tom Coulter said that he would like to beef up this committee to make sure that it was a successful project. And that meant bringing some people on with some specific expertise, experience, and given how contentious this was over the next year, it's essential that it not only meet everybody's expectations who voted for it, but in fact exceed them. So I think if you heard everybody that was introduced around, you'll see people that were appointed, in addition to those who had worked so hard to get it this far, I think it brought the expertise that we need. But that said, it's all going to be driven by the people in town hall who are going to assist us with this. And as I said, the select board is the eligible applicant. If I could ask Steve just to say a couple words, just to.
Sure, I appreciate the time. So there are a lot of people who were heavily involved, or even some who were just mildly involved and somewhere in between, in order to get this project to where it is right now. And it really, I believe it was a complete team effort. Everybody who played their roles, everybody did a great job in their roles, and for that I'm grateful. The list of names is longer, unfortunately, than we have time to go over. But I would like to say that I think what ultimately persuaded people is just the truth that this is an excellent project. And if we didn't come forward with an excellent project, then we would definitely not have, even if everybody else did their parts perfectly, we wouldn't be here. So I can't express my gratitude enough to this committee for having moved forward with a project that really was what it was in the best interest of the town. It took work, but when we just laid out the facts and made sure that people understood what we had, they agreed, and that's because of the work of this committee. So I can't express my gratitude enough. We still have a long road. There's a lot of work that we still have to do. I don't want to say the hard parts behind us, because we might have a lot that we still have to accomplish. That's going to be difficult. But what I've seen, I think what everybody else has seen, is when we work together, we're able to accomplish pretty remarkable things. And so I'm looking forward to the next couple of years of working with you all.
Tom, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Very briefly, I want to echo Steve's sentiments. It's great to put faces to names. You folks did yeoman's work, an extraordinary job in getting this project to this point, and all of you should remember this the rest of your career. I congratulate each and every one of you. I can't tell you how important it is that we bring this project in on time and that we bring this project in on budget. The reason TJ and I went through the list and quote-unquote beefed it up is we wanted to bring people on board that had specific skill sets to complement the team that has already demonstrated its ability to succeed. And so for that, I'm very honored and very excited to be part of this team. TJ and I have a very clear understanding, so let me make sure everybody else does. TJ runs this show.
Oh, I said the opposite.
I'm only the appointing authority, and I've got a lifetime in construction management. So however TJ decides to use me, I don't come in here as your town manager. I come in here as a servant of this committee, particularly at TJ's direction. And it's a great thrill to be here. So thank you.
That was uncomfortable. Yeah, I probably did. I didn't have to give you the microphone. Joe, can I just say, the time that Joe put in over the last month before the vote was invaluable. He was out every single night, meeting with people in houses, having coffee, and otherwise, and I'm grateful that we have him as our superintendent, so.
Thanks, TJ. So I'll be really brief. There's this old saying when I was a union member called colleagues in solidarity, right? When you were all in the same group. We have to remember that this group of individuals and collectively, but also a group of PAC moms and dads who really, really, really pushed it to get to the end, and we should make sure that we recognize the work that they did in their campaign to get this over the top, especially how united they were. I can't say enough about the select board, Tom, and my school committee colleagues, and then what needs to be recognized that was really different about this project in the end here was how DRA and Vertex put a lot of time and effort into this project when they didn't have to, right? When we got extended for so many more months and I needed another map, I needed copies of something, it was just an email and then a few hours later, a few days later, things came forward. So I want to publicly thank them. And then, we were doing a lot of communication as a group, so I just want to recognize Jeff Pickett, who's our communications officer for the district, who will be acting in that role to support this committee as we need to communicate and put things out, I think is also important. So I look forward to working with the committee, and of course, I welcome my colleague Julie as the new superintendent-elect coming in, who will see this project to fruition and open the doors on it when the doors become open in hopefully the fall of '28.
Fantastic. So, having got done with preliminaries,
One
thank
more
you for,
message,
please.
It reminds me of one thing. For those of you who have run for office before, the day after the victory, remember how happy everybody was that night? It reminded me the next morning after being elected a few times. You wake up the next morning and say, oh my God, the good news is we won. Oh my God, we now got to serve.
Yeah.
That's what this reminds you of. We now got to build a school.
Yeah.
So let us begin.
Thank you all. Let me just add on what Tom said. I'm one of what is now 21 members of this committee with no more powers than anybody else, other than see that order of the meetings goes forward and that, so please, anything that you ever have to say, I'm going to, after this meeting, not tonight, but certainly in the next couple of days, send out a new contact list for everyone. And I'm not going to put anybody's private cell phones or anything like that on it. It won't be a public document. But what I'll probably do is ask you to send back your preferred contact to me so that everybody can have everyone else's contact info. And one of the things we'll discuss later in the meeting is subcommittees that we will have. And it will be essential that we'll all have each other's contact info going forward. So having said that, I don't want to be here all night because I'm talking. But moving on to item 2, public comment. This is the period of the meeting that we open up to the public, the opportunity to address the committee. Nothing that we can vote on or discuss substantively during the meeting, but certainly something that, if it's important enough, we can put on a future agenda. And we always welcome public input. If anybody is here and would like to speak, please feel free.
No one out there.
Well, I do it anyway so that people know that they can. I'll say this, and I don't want to prolong preliminary comments, but if anybody from the committee has anything to add, this would be the time to do it also. You can insert yourself into the public comment period that we don't have. Anybody like to say anything? Great. Also, on the thing that I just said, if you have anything that you would like the committee to discuss and want it on the agenda, you should reach out to me on that also. So, but now's on to business. Item 3, first order of business is to table acceptance of the minutes because we don't have minutes prepared from March, but we will by next meeting. And table item 2 because we don't have invoices prepared for, we don't have invoices. So we'll take that off the agenda as opposed to table it. So we're current, right?
Well, there will be.
Yeah, there will.
We're waiting for the approval of the amendments.
We'll get to that at item 8. Item 5, project and schedule updates. Tim?
Sure.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you, TJ, and congratulations to all you guys. You did a phenomenal job, and it's not easy coming back when projects fail. I think Joe probably can tell you it's quite an achievement. So that's a lot of tribute to the work you put in. That's pretty good work. I handed out to everybody. So what we're going to do is go through the project schedule. For those of you who were involved in the high school project, you'll hear a lot of things that are pretty similar in terms. If I say something that isn't, for those of you that aren't familiar with it, if I slip into jargon or something, please let me know, and I'll try to, I'll try to avoid that, but I'll explain what I'm talking about. I'm going to go through the schedule because we do need to move quickly and rapidly, given some of the challenges we have. In terms of getting into, we've already commenced planning with DRA and started the process of moving forward in the design development phase, which I'll explain a little more about. And then I'm going to ask DRA just to talk more specifically about some of the things that they're going to be looking at, particularly over the next, 4 to 6 months, to kind of keep it fresh in your minds about what our goals and what we're trying to achieve. So in the design, I handed out this schedule, which I apologize for the size of it. I had to print it myself, and I couldn't figure out how to get the 11 by 17 to work. So, and I'm going to really talk about it at a very high level, not to the detail that you're seeing here. We have a much more detailed schedule that we work from and that we submit to the MSBA. So I'll just want to go through sort of the basic kind of broad overview of what we're going to accomplish over the next year. I'm going to actually start with kind of where we want to be at this time next year, which is largely moving into beginning active construction, and I'll talk a little bit more about how we intend to do that. To get there, there are essentially there are two main components to a design. Once you pass the schematic design, as we have, there's the design development, and then there's the construction documents. In the MSBA program, that breaks into 3 different submissions. We submit the design development, which is about 60% of the design process, plus or minus. We're already at about 25 to 30. And then we submit the construction documents in 2 submissions. We submit a 60% set. And when I say set, that means it's a set that comes complete with cost estimates that have been reconciled and budget checks and schedule updates, and so that we all know we're staying on target. So our goal always in these projects, like I think we targeted for doing with the high school, is, we look at the team, have the team work well together. We always have a plan. We always manage to the plan, and, just kind of daily executing against that plan. That's our goal as we move through this whole process. So if you look at the schedule I sent out, and I'll try to direct you to the line items, our next big so there's a big MSBA milestone coming up that's not really a milestone, but it's a process, and that is we submit, or we have executed the project funding agreement. So when the MSBA, we have signed and have executed a project scope and budget agreement, that's sort of the interim step to getting the actual funding agreement, where it lays out the terms of the grant. And we expect that, depending on their workload and how they can get that out to us, that we'll have that sometime within the summer. My guess is we'll probably have it in the early summer, hopefully. And then that's a fairly pro forma document at that point. In the meantime, working with DRA and with the town, and quite significantly with particularly the town engineering departments, we are going to be working through the design development process. And so that submission, our plan is to submit that on line 106. You can see the date. We have that set up for sometime in October is when that is completed. The submission, the actual design will be completed probably 6 to 8 weeks before that, because we estimate that design, and we inevitably end up, especially in this climate we're in, having to look at what do we need to do to work on the design to get it within budget. That process takes a little time. So but the actual submission to the MSBA is in October. And then once that gets approved, and we know, we're in constant communication with them, and we kind of know what to expect, and certainly DRA and having worked on many projects know it as well. We know where we can push, where we can continue on, essentially, once we submit. We don't have to wait for all the comments to come back. We usually can incorporate them as we move through the process. So we would start pretty quickly into the 60% construction document set. The construction documents are the ones that the actual project are built from, that the contractor uses to build the project. The other big critical component of the design development phase is the permitting process that kind of kicks off the town and state permitting process. And we have a fairly elaborate permitting protocol to go through here, being, first of all, on a state road, and then also subject to other requirements around the Massachusetts Environmental Protection Act that we'll talk more and more as we get into it. But design development gives us enough design to commence that process, and the planning board process, and the DPW, and working with them. The submission for the 60% construction documents we have it targeted for sometime in January, toward the end of January. That's line 115 on the schedule. Again, that goes through the same process I mentioned earlier, and the MSBA will give us comments on that. And then that moves us towards submission of the 90% construction document set, which is essentially pretty much the finished set, obviously, at that point. We're looking at that at the end of April. And then there is a submission of 100% set. One of the things we're going to talk about later on in the agenda is the reinvigoration of the CM at risk process. So we talked about this, the committee did last year when we submitted the process, the original schematic design. Just kind of as a quick recap of that, In Massachusetts, you can do either design, bid, build, which means you don't hire on a construction manager and you design the project fully. We send it out to the marketplace, the lowest bid of the pre-qualified bidders gets the job, and then we move into construction. That works in fairly simple projects. I think several probably in Stoughton have gone that way, some projects. The high school didn't. The high school went with the new, well, it's not new anymore, but what was, it was new 20 years ago, Joel, right?
Oh, yeah.
The construction management at risk process, which allows you to bring on a construction manager, a professional construction manager, and work with them in the design phase and kind of work out logistics and planning. And they also provide cost feedbacks at every iteration of the process. And then we work with them to negotiate a guaranteed maximum price contract, or the final bid contract amount. And then we work with them through the whole course of the project with an open book accounting process, so we see all the bills and we pay up to that guaranteed maximum price. So we voted as a committee, as I mentioned a year ago, to go with CM at risk because there are a lot of reasons that's compelling on this project around timing of the project and timing of early trade packages, particularly because we have a bridge that we can't really even access the site until we get that bridge installed, and that's a long time to wait, for making meaningful construction on the project. So our goal is to, whether we go with CM at risk or not, is to go with an early package that allows us to get those bridges, the main bridge coming in off of Route 27 installed. But we also now, with sort of what's happening in the marketplace, there are other trade packages that we may decide we want to try to do early, which we would only be able to do if we do CM at risk. We could probably do a separate package for the bridges without CM at risk. The other stuff that is too integrated with the construction that we would need to have CM at risk for. We have some planning issues just around logistics, that the site has some complexity with wetlands that it would be a benefit. So that was the reason why a year ago we did vote to go with CM at risk. We analyzed the idea of finding some cost savings to present to the public this second time around, and the one obvious target was you do pay a little bit of a premium for CM at risk. And so we reduced that, we took that premium out. I explained this to the committee in January, I think, or the end of the year, as we went out to the public for the second vote. So the budget has been reduced by about $1.2 million from what we had last year for that premium. The good news is the market has essentially been flat the last year around, and it's pretty competitive right now, actually, bidding. The bad news is, of course, people that read the newspaper know that we have some economic headwinds around tariffs and what that's going to do to the construction marketplace. So we don't really know. I don't want to sit here and tell you that we know exactly what's going to happen with that process, because it's still unfolding and it's not been settled yet. We do think collectively, and Carl and I and TJ have talked about this quite a bit, that it would be worth at least seeing if a CM can work with us during the design phase to potentially help mitigate some of these risks and maybe find some of those cost savings and still bring our project in, obviously, on the budget that we have established. There's no real downside to it. There is a slight investment in the CM pre-construction services, which was going to be on the order of a couple $100,000. But under the statute, if we don't negotiate a GMP successfully with the CM, in other words, if they just can't come to the number that we need them to be at, then we would have the opportunity, going through some process, but not a particularly difficult one, to bid the project and essentially have the input we got all through the design phase and bid the project and kind of adjust on the fly and move with the bid contractor. So I bring that up because we're going to talk about voting for, I guess, would be the third time, around construction delivery methods, but it's also in the schedule as anticipated that we might do that, so we have some time built in for both the CM procurement and then also those early trade packages I mentioned. And that's on, if you look on line 127 and then on line 141 is the GMP development and sort of what happens during that phase.
Can I just add something there?
Sure, yep.
So I am in the construction supply business,
Yep.
and we are already being hit with tariffs.
Yeah,
Even with product that's already in the States,
yeah,
the suppliers are starting to hit us with tariffs on product replacement. So they're kind of going after the way the gasoline industry works.
Yeah.
And they're not looking at what's going to come in, they're looking at
what they need.
what they already sold.
Right.
So it's happening at 25% and more
Yeah.
on some of
No,
them.
and we're seeing it in our projects that we're starting to, we know it's happening, and I don't mean to minimize it.
Yeah.
But I think that, I think it's probably worth moving through this process, and then, as you said, it just may end up becoming where we feel it's more competitive to bid it. I mean, the design bid build contractors are also dealing with tariffs, so it's not, the tariff thing is gonna happen to us either way. It's not, that's not gonna be, it's not like it goes away one way or the other. It's just whether or not we can get enough
Control it
cost
a little
savings
more.
elsewhere to control it enough to make CM at risk worth it.
I got a question. The MSBA has standard contracts for CM at risk and design bid build. How are you going to reconcile that moving forward if you're going to kind of do a hybrid process?
Well, the MSBA contracts for CM at risk are for designers and
Right.
for us.
Right.
The actual, the CM contract is not an MSBA.
No, I'm talking about for
For us,
services,
yeah.
yes.
Well, we've worked this process. We're okay with that. We will operate under a CM at risk contract, and then if it moves to design bid build, we'll operate at under the same parameters,
We anticipate there'll be early packages.
one way or the other. Yeah. If it's an early package and we don't have a CM at risk, which obviously makes it easier for us if we do, we will have to actually bid them as a chapter
149.
30, horizontal construction process, so, we'll have to do that. The
Thanks.
bridges are gonna be steel, so that'll be a real indicator. Any other questions on that, or comments? No, because I wanted, I wanted DRA to just talk about the work plan a little bit. So that's the slide you could show, actually. But that's the broad overview, and now Carl's gonna talk to Courtney about what we're looking at over the next few
I can
months.
elaborate a little bit, particularly on the very first activities, the design development phase that we're already into, actually, and moving forward. And again, it's somewhat similar to what we have done on the high school project and others too, where we appreciate all the knowledge and resources and experience in this body, but as you might imagine, it's a little bit unwieldy to sort of meet regularly and get into detailed kind of discussions with 23 people around the table. And so we anticipate having a process where on at least a bi-weekly basis, perhaps even weekly at times. What's that?
Oh, the mic.
Oh, I'm sorry, thanks. The people who are recording this. So on a bi-weekly basis, we anticipate having so-called working group meetings, where there'd be a smaller subset of your building committee. And typically, we try to focus on a single agenda item each time. We have some major topics to address: site design, mechanical, electrical systems, architectural design, interior, layouts, and things like that. So, and by breaking that down into more frequent meetings with a smaller group, we can move quickly and efficiently forward, but always come back to you all as a building committee for final approvals. But basically, the building you see that we presented in schematics, it's on that poster board up there, that's what we're working towards. It's not as though we're starting over by any means. We're trying to literally develop that design and meet the budget and meet the schedule and so forth. So we have a work plan. It actually you might imagine the schedule that Tim passed out, each of those sections, we've broken down into much more detail as to how our team is going to address it on almost a daily basis, or certainly a weekly basis, with the various topics. You can see some of them up there. Sustainability and technology as well, all of those listed. So those will be happening during this phase all the way up through, at least through September and into October for design development. We will deliver, make presentations at every monthly, if that's the building committee schedule, every monthly meeting, to keep you all abreast of where the design is, what issues we've been working on. Typically, we'll sort of say, here's the issue, here are the options that we looked at, here's what the working group recommended, and what we recommend as a, project team going forward, and it's a chance for you to ask questions or get feedback, and we'll move forward. And at each of these submission points that Tim mentioned with the MSBA, we will need a building committee approval to submit as a design team. So we'll make a presentation at those times as well, not only of the design, but of the budget and the schedule as well. And the other thing I want to touch on is the permitting, which is a pretty crucial element of this process this time, particularly because it's on the critical path as far as scheduling goes. Some of the work that we're anticipating, we're taking, a green field and developing it. So we're, everyone's going to bring out the Joni Mitchell song, "We're Paving Paradise," cutting down the trees. The state has a particular review process for those kinds of projects where if you exceed certain thresholds of how much development you're doing on any given project, or how many acres of impervious material you're creating, and impervious means like rooftops, parking lot, pavement. If you exceed a certain number of acres, you have to go through a state review process with the state environmental protection agency. And we have to file what's called an environmental notification form, ENF. That's sort of one threshold. And basically what that is, it's like a clearinghouse where the state then sends out notices to various public agencies and local communities saying, here's the project, it exceeds these thresholds, do you have any concerns? And they kind of gather up those concerns and feed them back to us as a project team, and we have to react to them or incorporate them. It's not like a go, no-go. It's more comments back. But one of the things, too, that's a bit unique in the last, I think it's just a couple of years, in addition to sort of environmental criteria, the state's also concerned with projects that impact economic, what they call them, environmental justice communities, which can be defined in a couple different ways. They have low-income criteria. They have English language proficiency. I think there's 3 different criteria. Stoughton does meet those criteria. So if we have to submit the ENF form, which we're pretty certain we will, we also have to do sort of a modified environmental impact report with the state, which is mainly reaching out to the community, which we've done a lot of already, fortunately through this whole second vote process, just to inform them as to what's going on and to make sure, the state just wants to make sure that the people who are being most affected, you might say, by increased traffic or cutting down trees or so forth, that they're aware of what's going on, that they're, not adversely or unjustly impacted. So all that's to say that process, we anticipate taking 6 to 8 months to get through. And the real key there is, the reason it's on the critical path is that even if we wanted to, say, build the bridges first as an early package, we can't start that construction until we've gotten through this review process at the state. So it's even before our full set of architectural and engineering drawings are done for the building, before we even apply for a building permit, we often want to start doing some site clearing and, building the bridge. But that kind of construction has to wait until this permitting is done. So we'll certainly keep you abreast of that. We're going to bring on a consultant to us that helps manage this process, because it is sort of very particular and precise, and it's not one we go through very often on many school projects, and we do a lot of school projects, some of them, obviously as large as Stoughton High School and others, where that wasn't required, oftentimes because we're building on a site that's already developed, and so we're not increasing the impermeable, or we're not increasing the number of trips, car trips, because there's already traffic going to that site now, and so forth, so. So we will have, very good guidance there, and both from an engineering and sort of, not exactly legal, but administrative point of view, people who have been through the process before, who understand what the state is looking for. So we wanted to point that out as well, that's we've already started discussing that. We need to advance the design far enough so that we can file that application. We've already looked at some of the criteria, and we do exceed them as the design sits right now. We're looking to say, are there any changes we could make that would, eliminate that, so that we don't have to go through that process? That's right now a remote possibility. We don't know that we can avoid that and still, provide the same project that we, originally presented. We're advancing, in the sort of worst case right now, that we're going to have to go through the 6 or 8 months of review. So, but we're very confident and optimistic. We don't want to be, pessimistic here in any way, just to let you know that that's going on, and it does impact the schedule here for all of us as we go forward.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, TJ?
This might get too deep into the weeds, but we were talking about the uncertainty with tariffs and blah, blah. We kept, if I remember, geothermal is in the project, right?
Yes,
And-
for a portion of the building.
Right, and now that's uncertain. I mean, strike that.
The
The
reimbursement? you mean?
reimbursements are uncertain.
We've heard, we have a couple projects that are, currently underway. One right now, they're drilling wells today, and they're counting on getting that reimbursement. They're not stopping. I don't have, very precise feedback. A lot of communities are proceeding with geothermal because there's federal money reimbursed. That's what TJ's referring to.
Now there is.
And
Yeah.
it's been
Hopefully
sort of
it
threatened
stays, yeah.
that it may be pulled or something.
But it's not in
It would change the economics of it. Geothermal still makes sense for a lot of other reasons. It's still very energy efficient.
not the rebate.
Going forward,
Oh, the
but it does
rebate
cost
you get for
more
the cost.
initial
Yes.
construction.
Okay.
And we are planning on geothermal wells being driven, basically in what's the soccer field, the athletic field portion of the site, feeding, hot and chilled water back to the school to serve basically the first floor, not in its entirety, but basically the cafeteria, the gymnasium, the administration, and a few classrooms if they were to operate for, say, like summer school. Because geothermal is particularly efficient if it involves air conditioning as well. So those portions of the building that might be using on a regular schedule air conditioning are the ones that are projected to have geothermal systems. The rest of the building still be very efficient and be all electric, but it's not necessarily a geothermal source.
Seems like, I asked because that seems like one of the threshold questions, since we'll be working on site. And if those are uncertain for too long, we either have to give it up or keep it in. No?
Make it an out alternate.
Yeah, right.
I don't think we can,
It's a little tricky to design the heating system and air conditioning system either way.
You guys can
So,
I got a lot of faith in you.
but it is all electric, and in essence, you're just sort of changing the source of of fuel.
Does that mean that there's no gas coming to the project?
There is no gas coming to the project. We'll have a diesel generator, but it's a, a tank.
Diesel
A
generator?
tank, not fed by a gas line
Okay.
for emergency power.
Very 1960s, I like it.
I mean, the math, the budget, the tax impact, the town share was never anticipating that IRA rebate. It was kind of extra over. But obviously, it's a nice thing, and it wasn't insignificant under the IRA, so hopefully,
And there still are other rebates for being energy
Yeah, and there are
efficient
still
from the
others.
utility
We're
companies
meeting
too,
them,
which I forget, I don't think we promised the town that either in the calculations of what the town's burden was, but the energy rebates for being an all-electric building and meeting the new, very strict energy code are pretty significant, in six figures, hundreds of thousands of dollars could come back to the town for being energy efficient.
are there any questions about the schedule or the permitting to the extent we know it right now?
Might as well do this here. So Carl mentioned a working group, and we have a very large committee. We're looking for maybe 4 or 5 people we'll have a number of subcommittees. There'll be the working group that will sort of pare things down, as Carl said, focusing on one agenda item. Particularly, I think, you can see at different stages. First will be permitting and the site and things like that, and then eventually there'll be, I remember Courtney, of course, one of our most popular committees on the high school building committee was the color committee.
Oh, yeah.
We had, I think more people
It's
volunteered
even more
for that
fun
than-
with an elementary school.
I have zero interest in being on the color committee, but there'll also be a financial subcommittee that will review invoices. There'll be a change order committee that might be overlapping with the finance. My point is, there will be a number of subcommittees where everybody's going to participate in some level. And as opposed to having, sort of a schmoz here where we have a sign up, if you'll all trust me to sort of focus on what would be somebody's, and feel free to speak up, I have no ego in this at all, to appoint 4 people, 5 people tops to each committee when they come up, so we can keep it sort of manageable. I'd be happy to do that, but also with input. So if you have a desire to be on any particular committee and you shoot me an email or call me, there's a list going around, by the way, for asking for your preferred phone, because we have your email, of course, but if you can put down your preferred phone number, I'll send that out to everybody, but if you could reach out to me, and I'll make sure that everybody has a hand in something. I think one of our first will probably be a screening subcommittee for CM at risk. Screening
We will need that. yes,
applicants
yes.
for that, so Fran, you'll of course be on that. Yeah. So just a word on that, and if that's okay with everyone.
Mr. Chairman, I'd actually just like to put this into the form of a motion that we delegate the assignment to subcommittees to our chair, TJ Recupero, and I guess you provide a list of the subcommittees that exist with a description, and if there's anything that anybody wants to have, or any subcommittee people want to join, just to send an email or a message to TJ making that request.
Second.
Joe, you are fast.
Steve was going
I like
You scared me. You scared me.
Motion made,
to ask you other comments.
seconded. Any further discussion or questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, I promise you, if you have a strong interest in something, I want to make sure everybody has a hand in what's going to keep them active and interested, so. If there's nothing else on the project
TJ?
and schedule update.
We
TJ,
should mention that the working group typically meets during the daytime. We can
Right.
work remotely too, but just so people keep that in mind.
Right.
TJ, do you have a list of subcommittees?
We don't really,
That one?
I mean, I
Not
can
really?
put something together and send it out, so you have an idea. Yeah, no, I will, I'll email that out to everyone. I will say, there are some people that are kind of essential, like Dennis. You're kind of important on a working group, since we're handing everything over to you to manage. And, yeah, so, anyway, I'll send that out, look for the email probably within the next week or so. Anything else on schedule, project and schedule updates?
Nope, I don't have anything.
Good. If not, we can roll into item 6, CM at risk.
So, yes, so we do need, I mentioned this, I kind of went through the CM at risk presentation, so we do need a vote to authorize us to, we have to first get permission from the Inspector General's office and then go through the process of procuring the CM at risk, which is, it's a two-phase process, so there's a, as TJ mentioned, we do need a CM committee, pre-qualification committee. And then there is an RFQ process, which is open to any contractor to submit. And then that committee will shortlist to 3 or 4 or 5, if that's the goal of the committee. CMs then who will actually provide proposals that are more in-depth and more, there's a financial component and a project approach, a lot more information. And then we do interviews, and then that committee will pick the preferred CM. That process takes the best part of 2 months to get through that process, so, but we do need to take a vote authorizing that, since we took a vote to.
Could I ask a question before we do that?
Yes.
No, please go ahead.
Thank you.
On the high school, one of the reasons we went to a CM at risk was that the size of the construction contract, we felt that it would be very difficult to find competitive bidders. This particular project, it looks like the construction estimate is around 90 million, and I don't know how much of that is the early package, 5, 10, do we know?
I don't think we know, it's about 5.
About 5, so have you guys taken a look to see if there are any potential bidders on, for an $85 million project that,
I would tell you that's still getting up to where that's not a lot of bidders at that level. There's a couple of continual players in that range.
I can think of one from Springfield, yeah.
Yeah, that's one, and there's
Another one from Rhode Island,
one from Marshfield.
one from Marshfield.
That's the 3
We
main
won't
ones.
mention their names.
But that's still an issue, I think, that
Okay.
market.
I will say, Joel, I was getting calls. I didn't on the high school, but on this one, I got calls from people who are interested. And this was a year ago for the vote, so.
For CM or for
But he was
bid?
asking about the bid.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I mean, for CM at risk, there's probably a half a dozen that'll
Yeah,
probably
yeah.
submit. Okay. The same half dozen we've seen before.
Just to correct Tim, no, actually, Steve, why don't you go ahead?
No, please, after you.
Oh, well, I think Tim said that the committee would select, and if we're gonna do it like the high school, the committee screened and we screened down to 2 finalists,
3.
3?
Yep.
And 3 finalists were interviewed by the full committee.
Right.
And actually, I think the screening committee actually devised like a set of standard questions for each to answer for the committee. And then it was a free-for-all after that, limited free-for-all.
Well,
Yeah, but, and I suspect.
Fran and I have been through this before, so.
Yeah, so, anyway. So
Okay.
Go ahead, Steve, sorry.
I just wanted to make a motion that we proceed with CM at risk.
Oh, well, that was good.
Second.
Second, and I'll also say, well, no, I won't say this. I did ask Tim, I will say, now that I started. Because we cut out 1.25 million off the price and we did attribute that to CM at risk, my specific question was, if we're close on that, can we still, is it too early for us to use contingency money this early in the project, if that's important? I think it's important, we all might not, but that was my question, I don't know if that, anyway, motion made and seconded. Anybody have any further questions or discussion? No, please.
Just for the sake of minutes and agendas, do we have a recording secretary on the record for this meeting?
I think that's Eric.
Eric's doing it.
Okay, so Eric is the
Yes,
recording
yeah.
secretary for all of the meetings?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
TJ, at an upcoming town meeting, you'll have that money available to you from unused from high school for early in the project.
Better still.
So you may not have to come to contingency.
Actually, I just think it's important for the challenges that we have on the site, myself.
I agree.
TJ, just as somebody who's done both, the CM at risk for me in a project that has some complications, which I believe this project does, just basically mostly around the site, which we've known since the day of the selection and all of that. To me, the CM at risk is the best opportunity to literally, as the owner, if you will, not continuously feel like we're in the middle, right, when making difficult decisions. And that's one of the reasons why I love the CM at risk process, is because it really does come down to our own project manager and construction and DRA to really figure it out, the professionals to figure it out, and not just the working group. So I fully support it.
Great. Anybody else, questions, comments? Steve made the motion, I think. Sandra seconded it. Great. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? So the next step in the process is to put together a RFQ?
Yes,
And
and the Inspector General application.
Great. I had another question on that, but I can't remember it, so we'll move on. Discuss potential energy management,
Oh, we're going to table that as well.
table that.
We're not really prepared for that.
Okay, item 8. So DRA and Vertex contract amendments. We have, as you know, we have contracts with them, with DRA and Vertex
Yeah.
for the feasibility phase of the project. I'm going to kick this over to Tim in a second.
Oh, you have those too.
We have to amend those contracts now to cover us through design development. And, well, Tim, why don't you close up?
All the way to close?
All the way to close up, sorry. And there was a couple twists that Tim is going to explain, I think.
Yes,
Not a
yeah.
twist, but a shift.
So this is the DRA. I think these were sent around, right? Yeah.
Yeah, do you want this slide or you want
Oh, that's the slide, yeah, yeah. That's the budget in sort of easy to understand summary. So this explains, by the way, this is, the 1.25 came out of that construction line item, the 90.6 million there. So DRA, we worked with DRA actually a year ago to talk about the design fees, and they've submitted, maybe you should bring up their proposal. The CM, yeah. Yeah, that one, yeah. So this is the DRA basic service, so the basic service per the contractor, the fundamental design components that we talked about, and then construction administration, and, which is the construction phase, and that's $7.8 million. That would be the amendment to DRA. That would also include, if you can bring up the first page.
Yeah.
There are several other services that we will be putting an allowance in that DRA would be responsible for, and that is, you can see them there, but geotechnical, we were doing more geotechnical out on the site. That's the borings and the site investigation, particularly also around the geothermal and how we implement that and what we can expect for efficiency around that. We have a little more updating to do around the survey, although we have a pretty good survey. The geo-environmental, so there will be testing for the soils for any sort of potential hazardous material in the soils. And then there's a pretty strong on traffic consulting, because we are putting a light out onto Park Street. And then, as Carl had mentioned, the MIPA permitting process is another very complex process, you know, that we are going to be accounting for. So when the final amendment comes to you, there'll be line items for each of those and budget items, basically, that we're working with DRA to come up with to fill in those line items. Their fee proposal, once that's totaled up, you know, will be within the budget that we established in the $113 million budget that Eric had up before that. But prior, so that'll actually be amendment number 3 for DRA. Amendment number 2 is going to be related to work that is done as part of the feasibility phase. So we had, you know, DRA has worked pretty much since July without any reimbursement, and we do have money left in the feasibility phase, which has been appropriated for that purpose. And so we are recommending that this amendment be executed once that has to be put into a format, not like this, that we would send in. So there'll be an amendment number 2 for that, I'm not sure of the numbers. You've already done one amendment, I think. So there might be amendment number 3 and then amendment number 4 for the basic big $8 million services. So if you approve these now, we'll put them into the proper MSBA format for that amendment.
So move the recommendation.
Great.
Any questions?
I'll second it.
before they.
No, they should vote theirs and then we'll do ours.
Have a question?
Please.
Carl, are you going to have a FF&E consultant on this project?
Yes.
And is it someone we know, or?
I don't know if you know them, Stefora?
Oh, okay. Oh, no. Because as I recall, the FF&E consultant was very valuable on the high school project for the elementary school principal. Should be very happy to find this out. Okay.
We have about, I don't know, 15 or 18 consultants on this project. There's a big team behind us.
Okay. That was the only question I had.
Great. Motion made, seconded. Any further discussion or comments?
What was that total amount again? Maybe put that
$7 million, what?
$7,818,354.
up. Plus these extra services. that- Well, no, so that, this vote really probably should be 2 votes. One is the vote for this amendment, which is $7,818,354, plus extra services that will be defined in the amendment. And then the second vote would be for that $42,000.
I'll amend the motion to be the $7,818,354 plus the additional cost to be determined.
I'll amend the second.
So,
And then the second motion would be the. Reference that proposal.
Maybe in accordance with DRA proposal dated April 30th, 2025.
so the add-ons are a second vote when determined, but not now.
No, they'll be added into that amendment. They're going to be allowances within the amendment that you'll see at the next meeting.
All right.
They would get approved individually in the future as
Yeah.
reimbursable expenses, TJ.
Right.
Before we incur,
Okay.
or bring on any additional.
No, and I did review all these. Something else came up, and I might as well bring it up now, because I made a note to just mention it on a new business, because it wasn't on the agenda. And this is another thing that probably does get too deep into project details, but one thing that's concerned me, I went back into the 1,400-page schematic design. I'm very concerned about traffic and that it's not too focused on Park Street at the entrance. I'm more focused on traffic generally around town. Like, and I say that because, remember that dopey map or plan that schematic that I drew up?
Really good plan.
Dopey map.
I drew up a schematic over a year ago. Every route to this school site from each of the redistricting areas. And I guess it goes hand in hand with redistricting. There's almost no good way to get from, like, say you're standing at the corner of Central Street and Washington Street, and you have to get to the South School, or if you're standing at the corner of West Street and Plain Street, and you have to get to the school. Those have impacts different ways at 7 or 7:30 or 8 o'clock in the morning. And I know, we're doing traffic for a sole purpose of level of service, warrants for signalization, NEPA, things like that. But I'm kind of concerned about the complaints generally that we'll hear. So if I don't even know how you would study that sort of thing, other than the foolish schematic that I drew, but I just wanted to flag it for future discussion, because it's a concern.
Well, in the ENF process, we may have to study at least I'm not sure what you call them, secondary intersections beyond the primary entrance on Park Street. That may be a requirement. That's one reason why some of these expenses are called reimbursable, because we don't
Right.
quite know if we're going to need them at this time. But if we do, because of permitting or other reasons, we may be
Ties
studying
in-
that.
Ties in a second point too, that when we started this, we didn't have a working fire station, quarter of a mile down the road that is going to have some traffic improvements, and now we do. So, anyway, I wanted to flag that because it just.
I mean, I think before we finalize the traffic consultant's proposal, we'll meet with TJ and Mark and.
Yeah, you have to meet with Mark. The town already has a traffic consultant, I believe, so, yeah.
TJ, they might, the chief, the fire chief might have some. They did a lot of study about the traffic before they went with
I
the
think
fire
Joel's right. I
department.
think it's GPI, if I remember. Yeah.
I can't remember the name, but I know they have one because it came up on a couple of projects.
Greenman Peterson. Gee, I think it's.
We've worked, TJ, we've worked in my 2 years here with Mark Tisdale and then the consultant because of the lights at the library. That causes delays in the morning, and shifted them literally by seconds. And that shift by seconds literally made it flow where it just gets people to work quicker, if you will, as one example.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I only bring it up now. We're going to in 4 years, we'll get killed for it if we don't think of it now, so. No, Joel? No?
No, that's,
Anyway, so motion made, seconded. Any further discussion on that? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. Vertex.
And then amendment to this is the second vote for this service associated with design that occurred in the feasibility phase for $42,146.
So is there an amendment?
That's the other amendment.
No, is there
we're
a
talking-
number to reference?
You could call that Amendment 3.
Okay, is there a motion to approve? Great. Motion made to approve Amendment 3, seconded by Diane. Lynn made the motion. Any questions or further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Reference
Opposed?
that TSS 5.
Great. Now, Vertex?
And then our fee proposal, which will be a single amendment. This is,
nowhere near enough.
this is, thank you, Joel.
Retired OPM, I can say.
That's right. Essentially, this is tied to a schedule that we've worked with TJ over this for the couple of weeks ago, related to our staffing. This is how we laid out the fee. This is how we typically lay out our fee, essentially. And in it, we had we took a discount on the feasibility phase, so that in that contract, there is a recoup payment that you.
Let me do that part.
Okay, yeah.
So in their contract, if you recall, the town meeting originally appropriated $750,000 for this project, for the feasibility study. We immediately knew that we were underfunded for that. Vertex came on aboard anyway, and in their contract, there is a provision that they would work at a discount, provided that if the project, at risk, in fact, if the project was approved, they could recoup that amount up to a certain maximum amount, and that's $178,044, based on a certain rate structure. And if you look at the last Vertex invoice, or any Vertex invoice, but you look, the last one we approved, which I think was November, they tracked that all along. So it shows what they would have billed at their regular rates, what they were building based on the contract that we agreed. So they tracked that. And actually, the underbilling, if I can put it that way, we made out on this. They had it was like 190, I think, was the 190 something, 200 something?
Yeah, it was 200,000.
Yeah, so they underbilled us 200 and something thousand. They capped the amount that they could recoup at $178,044. So that's that line item, if you see in the box, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lines from the bottom, 8 lines from the bottom, $178,044. That explains that. And, all right, you
This
can-
amendment, well, thank you, TJ. This amendment would be for $3,346,620, as it will also include cost estimates, in addition to our fees through the closeout of the project.
Great.
So if I may, only because I can't see it, I left my glasses. How does this impact the overall cost of the project in terms of dollars? How much of an increase is this? What we're doing is covering time you put in, which we're grateful for, that you were not reimbursed for. What is the delta?
It's all, that was all budgeted anyway. So that's, if you look at the amount that we budgeted in the project budget that we submitted to MSBA, they match exactly.
Okay,
It
So-
includes that, right?
Yeah, it
Thank you.
includes that anyway, so.
satisfied.
Yeah, it's in that, right.
You looked at this?
Yeah, I've seen it.
All right, any other questions or comments? Is there a motion to approve this amendment for Vertex?
I'll make the motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any other questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're off to the races.
That's great.
Thank you.
Is Steve still working for you guys?
Steve Devine?
Or is he gonna retire?
I don't know. He's older than
No, I have
Bob.
one other thing. Sorry. So this is the list everybody passed around.
Move for reconsideration.
Under new business, this isn't really new business. This is the list did everybody give a phone number that they can be reached at?
Yes, yes.
Great. I just wanted to say before we leave, you'll notice that all your emails go out to about now 26, 7 people each time. Just be careful under the open meeting law when you hit reply all that we're not violating the open meeting law by discussing any substantive committee members over email. So that's the only point I had for new business, so. Yes, Joel?
I actually have a request and a question. The first question I have is that there's a lot of people that are going to be looking at how much money is going to be spent in this project. So Tim, could you provide us with the proposed budget report that you'll be giving us on a monthly basis so that we can see how the budget can be tracked? Okay, that was very helpful on the high school project. We did the same thing on the library project. And by doing that, we're able to keep in mind of all the money that was spent. So if you'll do that by the next meeting, that would be terrific.
There's a version of it of the budget staff.
I saw the condensed version. I mean, in act,
This piece, Joel, this is just for the feasibility, but we'll expand it around, it's those headings.
oh, okay, similar to what you had before. Okay, that's fine, as long as we can see it. Okay, fine. And the request I had, which I already talked to Carl and Courtney about, is that some of us might want to have access to the schematic design, the actual schematic design, and the corresponding detail estimate from the architect. So I don't want to be in a situation where I ask that it just be sent to me, so I want to see it. So if somehow you can put it on some kind of common area, so if Leo wants to take a look at it, if I could take a look at it, anybody can take a look at it, and we can see, and if we have any questions, then we can come back later.
Yeah. we can make the schematic design submission
MSBA submission.
link available to the committee, and then you can see it there.
It's bookmarked.
Okay, that's it for me. Thank you.
Great. Motion to adjourn from Sandra Gropey,
Second.
Adjourn.
second by Steve Cavey. All in favor, thank you all.
Aye.
Aye.